Happy New Day, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It is my great pleasure on behalf of the University Career Center to present this career meetup about learning about an artist's journey and their creative process. And we have the wonderful Hasan here with us today, noted artist and activist and just great community worker. And we've had the great privilege of being able to partner on really tremendous things in the community. And I've been able to see her do a lot of even greater things in the community. So thank you so much for being here with us, Hannah, and I will turn it over to you.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So anytime that I'm asked to speak, especially to college students or folks at this sort of stage in life, in the journey, I say yes, because I wish someone would have done that for me in a way that landed and made sense for what it could look like to have a journey of a creative career. So what I'll do is I'll share my story. I'll start with college and kind of go from there. And then I'm just open to any questions. I'm a very honest person, so I can answer any questions that might need to be answered. But first, I'll talk about my story, my journey. I went to college at North Carolina A&T State University. I had an understanding that I wanted to be a person who used voice and interacted with people daily and like had purpose and vision in life, but I did not know what that could look like for a career. But I knew that I wanted to be someone of significance, or at least I needed for it to feel that way. So when I went to A&T, my first major was public relations. I got into the public relations program and heard the musings often of public relations people look a certain way, and you're going to need to be able to show up in a certain way when you're in those spaces. And that way was not the way I looked. They weren't, if they were Black, they weren't darker skinned. They weren't people who existed in bigger bodies. They weren't people who like visibly cover and all of those other things, which are things that I do. I find myself at many different intersections. I'm a Black woman, I'm a Muslim woman, I'm a woman who is in a bigger body and who is dark skinned. And those things out here in this world that we live in, they do matter, right? Like that's 100% keeping it all the way real. So as I was in public relations and we were being taught like sort of how to be these glossy like people that kind of wasn't who I was or wasn't what I was ever going to fit into, I was like, well, this is not my major. So then I went to political science. I was like, I can be a lawyer. We can do that. And I got in political science and I found some of the things interesting, but just still didn't feel like my space. I was like, oh, social work, that's it. Work in the community, like I can be a social worker. And I will be very honest. I got into the social work program and I looked around the room and some of the people who I knew from campus who had some of the major like unchecked trauma issues, all of them were in social work. I was like, oh no, this is not my space either. And then I went into sociology. I kind of enjoyed that. Still had no idea as to what I was going to be doing with my life. I knew at that point that I wanted to work either in nonprofits or higher education in some capacity or another. And then I was approached by an academic advisor for a new program, which was a liberal studies program. Where they said, basically, you've been in so many different degree programs. You can take classes from all of those majors and build yourself a degree. And we're trying to test this out and see if this will work for future students. I did that. I will say that I graduated out of that with liberal studies, concentration of human and cultural development. I built my curriculum based on what I wanted out of college. I remember distinctly going to a business class. And most of the people in that class were business majors. It was a higher level business class. And we had to design our own business. Maybe we were in like the entrepreneurship section. And we did it with partners, and I had a partner who wanted a healthcare business and I wanted to do something that was nonprofit. So we agreed to design a business that was a nonprofit hospital or some type of healthcare system in Black and low income communities, that kind of thing. And we did our presentation, and everyone else in the class did these presentations about like custom Nike shops and clothes and really cool stuff, but just nothing like what we were doing. And I was thinking to also this guy, my partner, group work, he didn't really end up doing anything. So I did everything. And I was thinking to myself, like, damn, my professor's not going to like this. But I wanted to do something that felt unique to the person I was. And I will never forget, he pulled me to the side afterwards and he was like, I've been given this assignment for a very long time. And what you did today, I saw what you did, that was brilliant. And he said, I look forward to reading about you in the Wall Street Journal one day. And that was very interesting to me because I never saw myself, I saw myself as a community person, not a business person, right? And that stuck with me. So that's my sort of college major journey. One thing that happened while I was in college was that I decided pretty much from freshman year, that I was going to no longer mute my voice. When I was in high school, I sort of jumped behind a lot of other people and pushed them to the front because it was what I wanted to be and do, but I didn't have whatever it took to do that at that point. In college, I was like, time's out for that. So I want to reinvent or come home to myself is what it really was. And my freshman year, there was a sign in the dorm that was looking for open mic performers for our open mic night in our dorm. And I signed up and decided to perform poetry. I had never performed spoken word poetry before. I want to say that I had played around with writing a bit. I remember distinctly being in high school and reading about Asada Shakur and also writing some poetry during my math class because I hated math. I was not very good at it. But I had never really even gotten serious about it. I started to fall in love with the TV show Def Poetry Jam. And I saw something in that was really attractive to me. But I'm from a small town, Statesville, North Carolina, weren't no slam poetry there. So I started doing poetry in college and I joined, I performed at some of the poetry slams. I lost every time. Not like lost in the final round, but lost in the first round. Like, get out of here. This ain't your lane. And I remember being backstage of a slam one time and hearing one of the poets, they were talking about love poetry and how weak it was. And they started talking about Maya Angelou poets and that kind of thing. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I've always loved Mother Maya, like always. And when I saw like the part of the poetry that I love deeply, it was rooted in the way that she showed up in the world. And so I began to see that like these poetry slams, this ain't my lane. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it wasn't my lane. I was performing a lot all over, and that was a beautiful thing. And I graduated college. And I moved to Charlotte. And I moved here without a plan, but with a fiance who lived in another city and didn't want to live in Greensboro. So therefore, the compromise was that we moved to Charlotte. So I moved to Charlotte. I took a job at Allstate Insurance, their call center here. And I was preparing for my life with this man who eventually like left, like never even came to Charlotte. We didn't end up together. Plot twist. But I was here in Charlotte and I was working at this call center, insurance sales, and I was good. I was great, right? Like that's real. It was something that in the beginning was like, oh, okay, I never thought I'd want to sell insurance, but maybe this is the move. I'm good at this. I'm naturally closing these, cases and all that other stuff. And at some point I was like, oh, this is not it. I don't feel at home here. And this is a story that I had not been realistic about until recently, but if I'm going to tell my honest truth, I'm going to give y'all the truth. My younger brother, Shahid, also worked there. And I will never forget this. Like, I decided that, like, I'm not working here anymore. And at some point, my best friend's grandmother died. I told them that I had a death in the family. It was my grandmother, just making up stuff. I took time off then. And my brother was then also forced to take time off that he didn't want to take off. But they're like, if your grandmother died, then it had to be his too. Just ridiculous. Like, and I realized that, like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And so I started to visualize in my mind something different. And at some point, I decided I'm leaving. And I started to tell my coworkers that I got this job in nonprofit, that I was going to be doing leadership training for young people. Not the truth, right? And I'm telling you all this not because I'm a liar, that's not who I am, but because I was really dreaming up something different. I was lying in the moment, but I had to get myself out of there. And I got a job in a nonprofit, working for a nonprofit agency here in Charlotte. And that started my journey towards nonprofit. I started doing program management. I was registering folks to vote and out in the community and managing the team. And I saw that. I really liked that. I stuck with that. And I was still performing poetry when I got the chance, mostly at vigils and rallies and in community. And I moved through a couple of nonprofit spaces, and my work was in workforce services, helping people find sort of the jobs and careers that they wanted and needed. And I did that because I was pretty good at, like, just sitting and talking with people and understanding this is where you need to be, not here, and this is how we get there. And how do we dream that and vision that? And I worked in, like, an unemployment office and all of those things. And finally, I interviewed with an arts-based, like, teen leadership nonprofit. And essentially that was what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be. Like, it was that lie that I had told back when I worked at Allstate. That was what they did, or at least as it appeared, that was my job coming to fruition. So I said, okay, bet, this is where I'm gonna go. And I ended up there, and half of the job was in me training teens, students, in the art of spoken word poetry, and letting them learn how to write poems and perform poems. And in that program, they did them for community organizations and to honor people in the community and that kind of thing. And also, I worked inside of the office and did administrative work, recruiting, nonprofit work, that kind of thing. And one thing that I started to do more and more and more of was get involved in the community, meet people, make a name for myself. I was performing like crazy. Anytime, unfortunately, because of things like police involved shootings and things like that, I was performing a lot because people were asking for poetry to sort of center spaces and to pay homage and honor to what has been lost and what we're trying to gain and all of those things. I was performing as much as I could. I was making connections in the community, and I was working and doing some stuff that I love. At some point, I realized that there was a lot of problems within that organization, the leadership. The students and the teens were amazing to work with. I love working with young people. And the pay was not bad, but I also knew I began to get really uncomfortable in that space. This is not for me. So uncomfortable that I was not sleeping at night. I was like having nightmares and that kind of thing. And I woke up one day and I said to my husband, like, I'm leaving. And he said, okay. I did not have a plan. And it's always important for me to share that because I know that oftentimes we are told to have a full-on business plan, to have all of these things in order. And I'm not negating that. I'm not saying that you should not have those things. I'm just telling you my truth. I didn't have one. I just needed to be free. And I knew that I, at this point, had made a great deal of connections, and that I was pretty good at my lane in my poetry. And I had there was a community-based organization, mobilize.org, that was all about getting millennials engaged in civic engagement. And I signed up for their, a group that they had, their speakers bureau, and I was accepted. And we went to a training program in New York. And at that training program, we learned about the art of storytelling. And I remember the woman there, she said, storytelling, it's of course it's been happening for ages. It's especially as a Black person, it's deeply rooted in our experience. And we've been telling story and holding on to our narrative and passing it down for since we've been here, right? But she said in that training, it was in New York, she said this storytelling thing is about to really take launch. Like, pay attention, because it's like we're moving into a future where people are going to realize that all we have is our stories. And that really sat with me. And she was also, so this, a very quick story behind that experience is that when I came to New York for this training, Mobilize, the organization that we were there for, the very first night that we got there, they took us to a dinner, and we had the opportunity to meet a man named Michael Skolnick. Michael Skolnick was, if you've ever heard of Russell Simmons, he was the right-hand man to Russell Simmons, meaning he had a lot of power and influence in entertainment, in community work, in all of those things at a high level in New York. And at that time, back in Charlotte, I was hosting an open mic night with some of my friends. I was doing all these things to try to integrate art into community organizing. And when I had the chance to sit down with Mr. Skolnick and talk to him, I started telling him about what I was building and doing, and he stopped me mid-sentence, and he was like, "Move to New York. Like, you can make a bigger difference with people who are already doing that work. It's already happening here. Don't waste your time in some small town trying to make that work. Move up here. When you get here, call me. I will take you to lunch. I will let you meet some people. We'll get you started." And that kind of blew my mind. I went back to the hotel and called my husband and was like, "Should we move? Like, what's going on?" And he's like, "Hey, we can consider it. Like, whatever needs to happen can happen." And I kind of went to bed that night thinking, like, I don't want to move to New York, but maybe I need to. Maybe that's what's happening. The very next day, the woman who was there to facilitate the storytelling workshop walked in the room. And she started talking, and she said to us, there were about 12 of us, and we were all from different parts of the country there for this training. She said, "I'm going to tell you my story. I'm from a place that none of you have ever been before. You don't know anything about. But I have traveled all around the world doing this type of facilitation, building groups and training people through the power of story." And she said, "I am from a small town in North Carolina, not far from Charlotte, Troutman, North Carolina." And she keeps moving. And I became a mess of myself, because the elementary school that I went to was Troutman Elementary. The middle school that I went to was Troutman Middle School. I am sitting here in the middle of Midtown New York in a skyscraper, listening to this woman from my hometown talk about how she's told stories, how she's empowered people to tell their story all around the world. And I went to her afterwards and I said, "Hey, like, let me tell you about this experience that I had last night with Michael Skolnick. I'm thinking about moving to New York." And she said, "That is BS." She said, and it's nothing against him, but she said, "You are right in the middle of one of the biggest growing cities in the country. You have an international airport right up the street from where you tell me that you live. You can get on a plane and go anywhere and do this work, and you can do the work right there at home where you are." And in my belief system, we have always been taught that you take care of home first, that you give back to the communities that have nourished you. So while I would love, I'm thinking to work in New York and stuff, my home needs me. And I made the decision that week that I was going to go back home. And so I knew that in order for me to survive as a working, thriving, living artist, that I couldn't do it only on spoken word, that I needed to have other sources of income. So I started doing storytelling classes, storytelling for community, for leadership development and building and training. And I also started producing storytelling events, like interviewing people in community and seeing what their experiences were of home and things like that, and building whole storytelling shows around it and having the community come to watch it and experience it. And I have been able to do this work in Charlotte, all over North Carolina, in cities and states throughout this country. Right after we leave here today, I will be performing poetry for an organization out of DC for their national conference. So my work, I shared with you my journey from college because I think it's important for you to understand what's in the ground. But when I left that job that I had with the arts organization here 3 years ago, I didn't have a plan but to stand in my purpose and to work my butt off. And the things that have sustained me is, one, when I go into a room, I make sure that they remember me. Right? If I go and do a performance, a speaking engagement, a storytelling show, facilitate a class, and from that, I don't get new business, I have wasted my time, right? Because I'm not just an artist, I'm a business person. And also, as such, I treat my work like it is business. So I show up. There are a lot of people who say that time is a social construct and all of these things. It might be true, I don't know, but all I know is this. That people have to set up times for meetings and events and things of that nature. And if they hire you to do a job, they need you to be there on time. It's the game. It's part of the thing. And artists get a bad rap for not honoring people's time. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because it's true. Like, it's real. I was a part of a project recently with one of the major organizations here in Charlotte. They hired a group of five poets to do a video that was a very high priced photo shoot. Our call time was a certain time, let's say 9:30 a.m. I get there at 9:15, excited, ready to go. The rest of the poets didn't start dragging in till at least 10. And I was pissed because my time is valuable too. So I carry myself as a professional when I'm in these spaces. And those might be standards of professionalism that we want to push against or whatever, but they exist. So sometimes you got to operate within the confines of what exists. And I make connections with people. I let them see me, not just as an artist or a performer, but as a human, and I see them. And when I'm in a space, I'm in that space fully. I'm not scrolling through my phone or, ready to get out of there. I don't perform and then run out of the room and all of that other stuff. No, I let people see me and I give them the opportunity to experience me in my fullness. And I do the same with them. And those relationships yield other opportunities. I have never paid for any type of like extreme marketing or anything like that. Sometimes if I'm having an event that I am sponsoring or my organization is sponsoring, we'll invest in some like social media marketing. But in order to get these performances and these speaking engagements and all of these things, it has been me showing up as my best, most authentic self and consistently getting work. I believe that when you are working in your power and in your purpose, and you are doing so with the best of intentions and also with like showing up as your best self, the work continues to come. But as artists and creative people, we have to continue to be creative in the way that we get that work. We have to be part creative and creator and the other part business person. And that business person side is often not fun, but it's what's needed in order to get to where we're trying to go. I'm gonna stop there. That's a lot of me talking. Thank you all for joining. I would love to talk back with you. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please unmute yourself and feel free to go.
Can you kind of just talk about how you balance like not limiting your creativity or your voice with like your beliefs and values? Like what kind of has helped you maintain just being your full self when creating art, since it's kind of something that is critiqued by others?
Yeah, so one thing that I have learned the really strong power of, especially since I have sort of built my name and built my brand, is of saying no. Every project is not for me. There are some things that I will give you an example. Recently, someone reached out to me about doing a story for, first of all, some type of event that was not fully thought out. Like oftentimes people will contact me about stuff and they don't even have their stuff together. I don't want to be a part of that, one. But two, it was an event that was related to sexual health. and abuse. And I felt that it was something that needed a lot of, like, for me, research and understanding of what they were asking me to do. They weren't paying enough to give me the time, space, or energy to do that. And it just wasn't my lane. So I said no, right? I enjoy, more than I enjoy getting paid for my work, I enjoy doing my work. Like when someone approaches me about creating art, you know, if they want to commission me to create art with their organization or for their business or just for them, that feels honorable. And so I will only do work that I can honor. What I have found is that in saying no, it always opens up the door for the things that I need to say yes for. I didn't get that in the beginning. In the beginning, and also there is a bit of like sometimes having to do some things that you're like, I don't love this, but also I'm building a business and a brand. But I will always stay true to myself because I got to look me in the mirror every morning. So, I mean, I listen to myself deeply and intently. And when something don't feel right, even if it's like not in an ideal portion of the show, when I want to, you know, when I need to bow out, I will bow out. Sometimes you have to. Does that answer?
Oh yeah, that answer. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions, comments?
Well, as our students are thinking of some questions, I want to say first, RJ, thank you for that question. Very nice plant in the background there. And Hannah, could you tell us, you know, a little bit more about some of the services that you offer and, you know, and how folks could support or contribute?
Absolutely. So I break down my work into three brackets. First is like the spoken word and public speaking. And that's often for conferences, workshops, community events. And the spoken word is usually commissioned pieces for different events and projects and things of that nature. The best way to support that is just, so where the speaking engagements are concerned, those are mostly like private engagements or things that internally those organizations are already promoting or whatever. The spoken word stuff, same thing, but sometimes I have projects like AJ, you know, there's a big history of lynching project that's happening here in Charlotte. I've been commissioned to do the poetry for that. Like when you see events and things that are happening in the city, especially y'all are students, but sometimes UNC Charlotte feels like a city outside of Charlotte, but we want you to be involved in the city of Charlotte. So if you see arts-based events and things of that nature, especially that I'm doing, come, please. I would love to, or like classes and workshops and stuff like that. That's the second sort of rung. I do a lot of storytelling for leadership, for community development, that kind of thing. Those are usually commissioned as well. So those are closed to the people that are within those groups. But sometimes I do, so I have a storytelling program that I run with an organization here in Charlotte called Arts Plus. It's called Intersections, and it is students and adult community leaders, elected officials, people in leadership roles and positions come together in small groups, do these like storytelling workshops that I lead together. And then at the end have like a live storytelling show event that is hosted for the community to come and experience. It's beautiful. It is really important to see people who are elected into our offices who are supposed to be the ones who are serving us to have to sit with students, the people who are making the decisions for our future. It's important to see them share story together because story changes things. So that if any of y'all are interested in participating in a cohort of that, let me know. I can get you in one of the next ones. But that type of those classes and stuff, it's just like when they're available, you can come. And then I host a lot of community storytelling events. I did a partnership last year. Wait, what year is it? It's 2021. So it was this year. Wait, was it? Time. I don't really know what it is anymore, but I did a recent partnership with UNC Charlotte's Bonner Leaders Program. They were working in a community that has been impacted by displacement through gentrification. And I came in with that group and worked with the students to go into the community. We met with people who live, work, play there, got their stories. I wrote the stories, and then we worked with actors in the community who learned them, actors, speakers, storytellers, put them on stage, had a big event in the community. It's beautiful. So I do a lot of those types of things. My organization will be gathering the stories of our community through living during this time of COVID, documenting those, writing those in storytelling form, and then working with actors and storytellers who will learn them. And we'll have a big show in Charlotte in January where people can come and sit side by side and bear witness to our stories in that way. So overall, the best way to support, follow my work is social media. I post all the things about what's going on Instagram, Facebook, some TikToks, that type of thing, Twitter. So I am Hannah at I am Hannah Hasan. I'll put it in the chat. I would love to connect with y'all.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And you beat me to it. I was getting ready to add that in there for you. Excellent. Excellent. So please follow to stay in touch. And Hannah, you mentioned the importance of networking. I feel like a couple times there. So you all please take heed to her words. They are very powerful words, and networking and connecting with people is very, very important. Do you all have other questions or thoughts that you'd like to share?
Can you kind of touch on, well, based with networking, how you kind of determine, who you feel is someone that is of quality to work with? Because I feel like a lot of times as artists, we have like a lot of ideas or just creative juices that we want to get out, but we end up just spewing that out to people who aren't necessarily ready to take action in order to work with you. So can you kind of just describe what your process is with that and determining who you feel like is good people to work with?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. First of all, there are vibes, right? Like you have to pass a vibe check. Like if you're approaching me, and people approach me for many different reasons. Sometimes it's to collaborate. Sometimes it's to hire me, commission me, whatever, right? But I'm not working with anybody on any level who just something don't feel right. Right? Not like and I'm not just some super picky, weird person where that's concerned, but if the vibe check is off, then we can keep moving. That's number one. But after that, I think it's important to understand yourself. So I know who I am. I know the way that I work. I know what I bring to the table. So when I am going to consider, especially working with someone, I need to know that about them. So a good example of that is I was going to work on a book with myself and another artist here in this community. And I have a lot of respect for their work and who they are as a creative person, but their business side is off. They've stated publicly that they don't do grants and they don't like applying for this and that, and that's fine. But also I realized early on, I said, I'm going to send this person an email that's going to detail some things, highlight some interesting stuff, whatever. And if I get a response by this date, it was time sensitive, then I will move forward. But if I don't get that response, then I will know that they're not that they're not serious about it, but they're not capable of doing what it takes to make this project move forward. And I'm going to end up doing way more work than is my fair share. They didn't respond until like 2 weeks later. Oh yeah, that email. So no, it's not happening. So it's the vibes, but it's also that if I know who I am as a creator and a professional, if we are not aligned, we can't work together because I'm not pulling you along, right? My goal is to know where I am and to work with people who are already there and who are ahead of me, right? So that in the ways that I'm ahead of them, I can teach them and grow them, and that they can do the same thing for me. No is a full, complete sentence and statement. And yes is an opportunity, right? Also, the thing that is very important is to have your business self aligned and to have some people in your corner who support and who understand the assignment and what you're doing and can support that. So I have a business partner who is my sister-in-law, who I trust literally with my life, who is a shark. She don't move the same way that I do, and that like vibe checks have to be right. And but what's the condition of your heart? She's like, where's the contract? And let's look at the conditions of this contract. Where's the payment? What's the dates that it's coming in on? It is so important for me to have that in my life. My husband, who is a real strong sort of behind and beside me, this type person, right? He's like, nah, like this is off and that's why, right? It is important for people who are really in love with the creating portion to understand the business side, but to also have people around you who surround you who will reinforce that. You need to, when you get the chance, build a team and keep your team tight. And that team doesn't have to be a whole bunch of people. Mine are that sister-in-law, my husband, and my brother. I know that they are people that I can call anytime that I need, and they will give me wise counsel. So that's really important. It gives me the space to show up as I need to. That kind of ventured off, but does that answer what you were asking?
Yeah, that definitely helps out a lot.
What's your art form, RJ?
I'm kind of in the process of narrowing it down because I like producing music. I like making just general art, drawing, and that kind of thing. I'm kind of interested in poetry, spoken word, because I understand that in order to create music, the basis of it is often spoken word and poetry, which is often missed. So I kind of like just learning different art forms and kind of seeing where I can go right now. But I've kind of been leaning towards graphic design and somewhat of like poetry.
Yeah, cool. Please connect with me.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do.
There are a lot of people in our community who are able to fully sustain themselves and have fulfilling careers doing the very things that you're talking about. There is a myth, a narrative that you can't have a creative career and be a full-on professional. You definitely can. You just have to be prepared for it. And one of the best things that we can do is embrace things like mentorship and community in that way. So I'll be happy to connect you to some things, some people, all that other stuff. So let's link up.
Yes, ma'am, we'll do.
All right. You're welcome. I could take one more question if need be. I guess we good.
Yeah, so if you all don't have any other questions, Hannah, are there any, I guess, final thoughts or things you'd want to leave us with? I know we want to be respectful of your time.
Sure. I think the final thought that I would leave you with, which is something that I did but didn't know that I was needing to do it, which is take, especially while you're young and while you are interested and excited about if you are looking to grow a creative career, take every chance you can get. Like, say yes, give it a shot, like fail big, and pick yourself up and keep moving. All of those lessons will prove to be beneficial as you move forward and grow in your career. Like, just be willing to say yes and to trust your heart and your intuition and to move like with intention and to lose sometimes and then get up and win and all those other things. Like, let this time be the time that you try all the things. Give yourself a shot.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Everybody, please give Hannah Hasan a resounding virtual applause. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us and share your journey. And everybody, please reach out to Hannah, connect with her and the great work that she's doing in the community. And I look forward to continued collaboration as well. Many thanks.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.